Golf.
Of all the answers I thought you were going to give, man, golf was not that.
I was originally, so before I was doing, any of this, I was originally, until the age of 15, I was somebody who idealized Tiger Woods. I had Jack Nicklaus VHS tapes. I had Tom Watson, guidebooks and stuff like that. And I was over at the golf course every other day with my family. It was an absolute passion. It was something that for a good chunk of my life, I thought was easily going to be the career path I was going to do. I was on a team. I had a coach. I was planning out, how to get to G school. I was thinking about how to get the license, et cetera, all this stuff. I played in tournaments, won some, lost quite a few, had that experience of thinking, you're the hottest shit in the world and then getting trounced by some other kid, I went through everything like that. I went through the whole 9 yards. And then when I was 15 years old, I kind of was just at a driving range one day and just kind of thought to myself, is this something I want to do every single day for the rest of my life? And the answer I came to was no. It's something that I don't entirely regret, but the main thing that I hated about the sport at that time was not the game. The game itself is amazing and fantastic. And as somebody who is an absolute introvert and somebody who very much instinctively leans to relying on sort of my own self and my own takes and all that kind of stuff, golf is a perfect sport for that because it is a game that is 100% on you. There is no sort of anything you can fall back on of, the team was screwing me over, not giving me the plays that I wanted, or, the weather wasn't there, setting up for this, or, we couldn't answer the strategy call or whatever. No, it is, you are on the exact same playing field as everybody else. And, even stuff like, crowd shouldn't make noise. You should adapt to it, motherfucker. You shouldn't be able to get intimidated by somebody just randomly shouting out your name. Like, you should be able to handle that. And it having this kind of, this score, you got there in par or better, and there's no arguments. It's a fucking number. You got there or you didn't. So, the game itself is great. What I hated was the aristocracy of it all. I went to places in California where they said, oh, no, sorry, we can't let you on the course yet because you don't have the correct pants. You need to, you're not allowed to wear those jeans around here. You're not allowed to, drink this or have this, or you can't stand on this field for too long, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. I hated all of that shit. I was not a wannabe, I did not want to have a monocle, growing up as a kid.
Not really
was going around. Yeah, I was going around there in like t-shirts and shorts or whatever. My play style back when I was a kid growing up was there's all these other people that, would watch the pros on television, taking 12 or 15 practice swings, not understanding the reason you do that is because at a professional environment, there's, the course is filled up with hundreds of people and you're waiting. You're not doing that because you actually need to do that shit or it's going to make you that much better. So you have those people, and I'd make a habit of being a 10-year-old kid and walking up and just hitting it, kind of as like a fuck you, we got things to do, we're not going to sit here and wait for you, kind of thing, so went through all of that. And one of the most valuable experiences of my life was after I made that decision that I was not going to do that and I was instead going to go into entertainment. And for reference, my mom and dad were both punk rockers. The shorthand I give is that my mom knew, my dad knew Kurt Cobain and my mom knew Courtney Love. That's kind of sort of the shorthand, is that, my mother did the whole thing of moving to Los Angeles and trying to get the record deal and starting a band and living the dream and all that kind of stuff. They both went for the traditional artist life and failed in the sense that, they didn't become those big names. So to hear that your kid who is really good at golf is deciding not to do that anymore, to go into entertainment, obviously they're like, are you sure about that? Like, no, are you sure? No, like, are you sure? Sure. Like, sure. Yeah. Like, and I don't blame them one bit, but the valuable experience I had was I ran into my golf coach on the ferry that I would have to take to get home, when I was going to university. And the thing about my golf coach is that he was also a writer. He also wrote films. He also wrote skits. He did a lot of comedy stuff. And we sat on that ferry just talking about shows and characters and arcs and story development and, you know, the university I was going to. And he just gave, you know, complete approval, and there was no judgment, and there was no kind of like, oh, you really lost that opportunity. He just believed that, no, if you came to that decision that this isn't something you want to do every day, then that is the choice. That is the one that you want to go through. Yeah, no, that was incredibly valuable. And, you know, maybe the little bit regret that I mentioned was that the sport is a lot better about this now. If you go to golf on YouTube now, it's a lot more fun. It's a lot less professional. There's a lot more trash talk compilations. There's a lot more, you know, people playing. Yeah, people playing, you know, shotgun mulligan, you know, kind of games on YouTube, or playing with pros, but, you know, like, oh, the pro's going to be on weed or whatever, and we're going to try to beat him collectively or whatever. You know, like, there's a lot more fun. It's a lot more laid back. The long drive is now like a big event, you know, where previously it was always considered a joke. You know, there's all these things attached to it that, you know, maybe, yeah, it would be fun to be in that world now. But at the same time, that's something you can get into later in life. And it's something that, you know, at the end of the day, the entertainment, you know, like I said, I was originally thinking about being a reviewer for GameSpot and ended up in a place that's way better than that. So, you know, I am not complaining. If the only disappointment maybe with golf is that it probably would have made more money. That's maybe like, you know,